What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac. This is Labman EDH, where we specialize in EDH deck building and judging commander cards. Today, I got a video of 4 more commander decks based around Final Fantasy characters. Now, this set is probably one of the best sets for commander in the last year, I'd say. I know technically it is a standard set, but come on, you're going to look me dead in my eyes and say this isn't made for Commander. There's so many legendaries to build around. So for today, we got Noctis and his garage sale. We got Tataro and her just being a secretary in the middle of a Commander game. You got Zidane who steals stuff and then will sell it back to your opponents. And then we got Vivi and Vivi's wardrobe. Okay, we're going to jump right into it. But before we do, if you do like content like this, give it a like, hit the subscribe button, comment down below what commander you are building around for this Final Fantasy set, and let's go ahead and jump into it. For our first deck, we got Garage Sale of Noctis. You'll see why I call it that here in a bit. But we got Noctis, Prince of Lucis. It's one generic, white, blue, black, legendary creature, human noble. It has lifelink and the ability you may cast artifact spells from your graveyard by paying 3 life in addition to paying their other costs. And if you cast a spell this way, that artifact enters with a finality counter on it, and it's a 4/3. Now, a few things here. As lifelink, you know how much I love that. Now, the ability is self-limiting. A finality counter is a counter placed on a permanent that says when this goes to the graveyard, instead, it gets exiled. So it's a replacement effect. Now, of course, we're not going to play this how they want us to play this. We break the rules here. But before I tell you how we're going to break the rules here, just going a little lore over Noctis here. He was heir apparent to the Lucian throne. His trials began when he sets forth from the crown city in order to wed Luna Freya. In combat, he wields spectral weapons, which he forges from thin air, a power possessed by those of his royal line. Which kind of makes sense because what he's doing is bringing artifacts back from the graveyard, which is kind of like his spectral weapons. Kind of wish he did more with equipments because it sounds like he's not making spectral telephones. He's just making spectral swords and stuff. But I digress. Now, our commander, I like him a lot because he's very self limiting. We don't need an all powerful commander, but he self limits in 2 ways. One, he makes you pay 3 life if you want to cast the artifact again from your graveyard, so you can't go infinite with like Lotus Petal. However, he also limits himself by finality counters. Now, that's a little too limiting for me. So, what we're going to do in this deck is we're going to get rid of the finality counters and profit from getting rid of them. For example, we got Power Conduits, 2 generic artifact. You can tap it, remove a counter from a permanent you control, and then you choose one. You either put a charge counter on target artifact, or you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. We're obviously going to do the latter because we want to boost our commander because he has lifelink. You know how much I like that. And we can gain some of that life that we're paying to cast our artifacts. And then you got Scholar of New Horizons. It's a 1 generic, 1 white creature, human scout. It ETBs with a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you can tap it to remove a counter from a permanent you control, search your library for a plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you may put that card onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put that card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand and shuffle, and it's a 1/1. So it mana ramps us, and then we got the +1/+1 counters, boosting our creatures. What else can we do with this removal? These counter removal cards. Now, you got Oaka, Traveling Merchant. It's 1 generic, 1 blue, legendary creature, human citizen. You can tap it, remove a counter from a non-land permanent you control to draw a card, and it's a 1/2. And then you got Soul Diviner. He's similar. He's 1 blue, 1 black creature, zombie wizard. You can tap him, remove a counter from an artifact, creature, land, or planeswalker you control, draw the card, and he's a 2/3. So our card draw will be removing counters somewhat. We also have other types of card draw, which we'll get into. The last counter removal card that I really like is Nesting Grounds. It's a land, it taps for a colorless, then you pay 1 generic, and tap it. You move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate only as a sorcery. So if you're getting finality counters on your permanents, you can say, hey, actually, I want my opponents to have this. That grave crawler you keep sacrificing, it gets the counter. So next time you sacrifice it, it gets exiled. So, okay, we're moving counters and we're planning to use artifacts. What kind of artifacts are we using? All of them typically will have abilities that sacrifice themselves. So that way we can recast them for benefit. So you got Moon Silver Key. It's a 2 generic artifact. You pay 1 generic, tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability, or a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Then you got Renegade Map. It's a 1 generic artifact. It enters tapped, and you can tap it, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So some of our mana ramp will be artifacts that sacrifice themselves so we can get them back so we are never short of mana. Some of our removal will also be artifacts that sacrifice themselves. You got the capsules here. They're both 1 mana, and then you have to pay some mana, tap them, sack them to remove something. For Executioner's Capsule, you're destroying target non-black creature. And for Dispeller's Capsule, you're targeting artifact or enchantments, which you will want both of those abilities. Now, some of our card draw will also be artifacts that tap and sacrifice themselves to draw cards. For example, you got Wedding Invitation, which is 2 generic artifact. It ETBs, you draw a card. You can tap it, sack it, make something unblockable, and if it's a vampire, it gains lifelink. And then you have Mind Stone. It's 2 generic artifact. You can tap it for a colorless mana. Then you can pay a generic, tap it, sack it, draw the card. So it's mana ramp plus something we can sacrifice for card advantage. Now, we're sacrificing all this stuff. Well, how do we benefit from casting it, then sacrificing it, casting it, and sacrificing it? Well, here's a few examples. You got Imhotep the Storm Lord. It's a 2 generic, 2 black legendary artifact creature, Necron. When 1 or more artifact cards leave your graveyard, create 2 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature tokens. And then at the beginning of your combat on your turn, another target artifact creature gets +2/+2 and gains menace until end of turn. So we're hopefully going to be playing a lot of artifacts from our graveyard. So hopefully we'll make an army of Necrons and take over our opponent. In a minute, boosting something is pretty good too. Then you got Sir Ginger, the Meal Eater. It's 2 generic, legendary artifact creature, Food Knight. There's another food for you. It has trample, hexproof, and haste as long as an opponent controls a planeswalker. And when another artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on her and scry 1. You can pay 2, tap her, sack her, gain life equal to its power, and it's a 3/1. A little lore about this guy. She was technically baked into life with a male, I'm assuming, partner attached to her, and then Garuk ended up eating the male, and that's why she hates planeswalkers. And you can see she gets boosted by rage when there's a planeswalker. But anyway, so she's going to get really, really strong every time you sacrifice an artifact. What's some other ways to profit from this? You got Marionette Master, which is probably one of the most infamous ones. It's 4 generic, 2 black creature human artificer, as Fabricate 3. So it either comes in with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, or you get create 3 1/1 server tokens. And when an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to her power. And then you got Esoteric Duplicator. It's 2 generic, 1 blue artifact clue. When you sacrifice it or another artifact, you may pay 2 generic. If you do, at the beginning of your next end step, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. And then you can pay 2, sack it to draw the card. So every time you're sacrificing, let's say Mind Stone, you can pay 2, make a copy of it. And that's one way to mana ramp and draw ramp all in one package here. And lastly, we're going to talk about Urza Saga and Salvaging Station. Now, Urza Saga is pretty good in this deck because all sagas get lore counters, and since we're removing lore counters, we can keep using the second ability to make constructs. It makes 0/0 colors construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, which hopefully we'll have a bunch. But if we're making more and more constructs, they'll boost themselves too. And then it can actually get a artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1 from your library to the battlefield directly, which can be very beneficial too. Then you got Salvaging Station, also has a 1 artifact, 1 CMC artifact theme to it. It's 6 generic artifact. You can tap it, return target non-creature artifact card with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to play. Then when a creature is put into the graveyard from play, you untap it. So you can get multiple back. And this is even better than our commander because we don't have to pay 3 life to do it. We just bring it back. There's no counters on it. So that is this deck in a nutshell. You bring back artifacts from your graveyard. They get there by you sacrificing them. You bring them back. You pay some life. They get a counter. You remove that counter if you can. And when you do, hopefully you're either mana ramping, you're boosting your creatures, you're drawing cards. And then you just keep doing that for incremental value. And as you're drawing cards, the card value from your graveyard's increasing and increasing. And hopefully you overwhelm your opponent with that strategy. Now let's go ahead and get into the next deck here. This deck is called the Wardrobe of Vivi. Now, Vivi seems to be one of the more popular commanders that I've seen from this set. A lot of people are going the Spell Slinger route, and there's really nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. However, what I want to do with it is actually go the Aura route, using auras to power up Vivi. However, before we jump into it, let's just read the card. It's a 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 red legendary creature wizard as a 0 generic ability. Add X mana to any combination of blue or red, where X is Vivi's power. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vivi, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it's a 0/3. So this is doing a lot. It has a 0 ability, which you don't see a lot anymore, but you can only activate it during your turn and only once each turn. And then it has a non-creature trigger ability where it gets a +1/+1 counter and does 1 damage. It does start at 0, so you can't even activate its first ability for any mana until you start playing non-creature spells. So I get why people are kind of flocking to him. He is like one of those lovable side characters. Now, he is actually a prototype black mage who fell out of a cargo ship into a forest. He was found and he learned of his origin. Initially, he was clumsy, shy, and gullible, often stumbling over his speech and lacking in self-confidence. He is afraid to use magic to save his friends. He was created to be a weapon, so he questioned his purpose. He grows in strength and confidence over time, which you actually see in the card because he starts at a 0. He does really nothing. And then as the battle progresses, he gets more confident, stronger, and it's almost like a perfect card. Like the flavor of this set is amazing. Now, if you've done any research into this deck, you know he goes infinite. He makes infinite mana with Quicksilver Elemental, which is a 3 generic, 2 blue creature elemental. You can pay 1 blue. Quicksilver Elemental gains all activated abilities of target creature until end of turn, and then you can spend blue mana as though it were any mana of any color to pay the activation cost of Quicksilver abilities. And he's a 3/4. If you notice that blue symbol is actually gray because in the Mirrodin set, they decided not to color in the mana symbols in the text box. That's kind of weird. So how it works basically is you need Vivi to have at least 2 power to go infinite. Then you make a minimum of 2 mana with Vivi's ability, use 1 blue to give Quicksilver Elemental the same effect, and then activate it to gain even more mana. So you gain 3 mana because Quicksilver Elemental's power is 3. You might think that you'd have to stop right there, but if then you use Quicksilver Elemental's ability again to copy Vivi, it's considered a new ability, so you can use it again and you keep doing it and you keep doing it and make infinite mana. Now, that is a 2-card combo, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that will move you up to bracket 3 if that's something you care about. I think a quick, it might even go higher because it's such a, you could get that, what, turn 4 maybe, that combo? So, but if you want to play it, there's nothing wrong with that. We're going the aura route, though. Now, I've kind of been obsessed with the fire breathing ability recently. I made a Boros deck that used a lot of fire breathing abilities. Now, fire breathing is ability in Magic named after the card fire breathing. It is a 1 red enchantment aura, enchant creature. You pay 1 red, enchanted creature gets a +1/+0 until end of turn. So basically, it's a temporary boost to your power, and that is cost you typically 1 mana. It's usually a 1 for 1. Sometimes it's 2 for 2. But and then you got Shiv's Embrace. It's 2 generic, 2 red. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has flying. And then you can pay 1. Enchanted creature gains +1/+0 until end of turn. Now, obviously, the fire breathing is fun. That's one reason I did it. Second reason is it actually will boost a lot of auras, not just the fire breathing, because there's only a couple you can play, but the other auras will also boost the power of Vivi, and then you could make more mana. And then, for example, let's say I play fire breathing. It costs 1 mana. Vivi's ability triggers. It gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Does 1 damage. Now, you would think, hey, I didn't activate the fire breathing ability yet, so it's not pumped. But it is pumped by the 1 counter. So really, it's a net 0. So because it'll produce, you activate Vivi's ability, it'll produce 1 red or blue. In Shiv's Embrace, it gives it a +2/+2. Then when you cast it, it gets another +1/+1. So really, you get 3 mana for the price of 4, so you're net -1. Now, if you can play a lot of auras that are like +3/+0 for 2 mana, and you're basically up a mana. There's even one that gives +2/+2 for 1 mana, so you're up a mana. So you can do it. So they're almost like mini rituals, and then you can use all that mana for the fire breathing. Now, you're doing damage to your opponent. It's not considered combat damage with the triggers, but Curiosity and Ophidian Eye both do the same thing basically, where you deal damage to your opponent, any kind of damage, you draw a card. Except for one has flash and one doesn't, but they're both good. You want to actually put cards to help tutor for it. So if you want to put transmute cards, a 3-coster and a 1-coster, I would do that in a heartbeat because you want to get these cards out. The card advantage gets insane because you do 1 damage to each opponent. So that's, hey, you cast a non-creature and you draw 3 cards basically. A few other things we can do. There's the Sound of Drums, which is a 2 mana red, 2 mana 1 red enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchant creature is goaded. If enchanted creature would deal combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that. And then you can pay 3 mana to return the Sound of Drums from your graveyard to your hand. This card's great because you can use it for defense, put it on someone's Blightsteel so it's goaded and can't attack you, or you can put it on Vivi and double her damage amount. And then you got Sigil of Sleep. This is a brutal card. No one's going to like seeing this. It's 1 blue, enchant creature. When enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. You play Vivi with this out. Then you play a non-creature. You do 1 damage to each opponent, which makes them bounce one. So it's like a 3-for-1. It's kind of insane. Now, you can obviously win the game through combat damage with fire breathing and all that. What's some other ways you can win? You got Auramancer's Guise. It's a 2 generic, 2 blue, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and it has vigilance. This is kind of insane if you have just a couple on your commander, and then you can produce just a crap ton of mana and then just keep going off and getting so much value. Well, what's another thing other than fire breathing that you could do with that mana? You could put X burn spells in here. So you got Jaya's Molting Inferno. It's an X 2 red legendary sorcery, meaning you can only cast it if you control a legendary creature or a legendary planeswalker. And then Jazz, a Molten Inferno, deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. So let's say you have 20 mana. You can do 18 damage to 3 targets. It gets kind of brutal once you get this going. A few other things you can do. You can play stuff like Quantum Misalignment. There's actually a couple cards that do this. I put a couple in that were sorceries, but there are creatures that also do this. It's basically will clone your commander, but make that clone non-legendary. So it's 4 generic, 1 blue sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except for it isn't legendary. Then has rebound, so you cast it from your exile at your upkeep. That way you get more VV triggers, you get more mana. And then you got Storm Herald. It's a 2 generic, 1 red creature, human shaman, haste. When it ETBs, return any number of ore cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control. Exile those ores at the beginning of the next end step. If those ores would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere else. Now, I really like this guy. It kind of blows my mind that he's a red creature that brings back all ores from the graveyard. Every deck should have mass recursion in some sense. I mean, if you're late in the game, everything's stalling out, you got a graveyard full of crap, you want something to bring that back. And Storm Herald will bring back a lot of your auras, and it doesn't have to attach to Storm Herald, it can attach to any of your creatures, like your Commander Vivi. One thing about auras that I kind of don't like is it's such a bad feeling when you have like 5 or 6 on your commander and then your opponent just kills it and now you're out of luck. They just spent 1 card to get rid of 5 or 6 of yours. So one thing I do for protection, if I can in those decks, is phasing out. Now, March of the Swirling Mist is one example. It's an X spell and 1 blue instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you can exile any number of blue cards in your hand and then make it reduce its cost by 2 generic for each card exiled this way. And then up to X target creatures phase out. So they target your commander, you phase it out, then at your beginning of your upkeep, it comes back in. So that's one way to do it. And it also phases out anything it's attached to. So any auras, any equipment. And then you got another card here. And if you remember this, comment down below. I'd be shocked if anyone remembers this card. It's from Battle Bonds. It's called Fumble. 1 generic, 1 blue, instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Gain control of all auras and equipment that were attached to it, then attach them to another creature. So if you have Vivi souped up with a bunch of auras, you can, and they choose to target it, you can play Fumble, returning Vivi, then moving all of his auras to another creature. Now, that's actually pretty funny, the flavor just of it. I remember getting Battle Bonds back in the day. It had doubling season, so I got like 6 or 7 boxes. Kind of crazy. Now, another way to draw in this deck, you obviously have like your curiosity effects and stuff. But another way to draw is X spells. And now imagine this. It's turn 20, everyone's stalled out. One thing you'd really like to draw is something to get your resources, whether it's mass recursion or an X spell that draws you a bunch of cards. And with Vivi, he can produce a lot of mana. It is only as a sorcery, but you can still cast it. Maybe you do have to discard the hand size. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have Thought Vessel or Reliquary Tower. But so I got Drown in Dreams and Commander's Insight just as examples because there's like a dozen or more now. It's X, 2 generic, 1 blue, instant. Choose one. If you control your commander, as you cast a spell, you may choose both. Target player draws X cards. Target player mills twice X cards. And then Commander's Insight is an X and 3 blue. Instant. Target player draws X cards plus an additional card for each time they've cast their commander from the command zone this game. So just a little extra draw. Throw them in if you like. There's other things you can throw in for drawing. Blue does it perfectly. Red does it pretty decently now. You can put the new Clive in here if you want and then soup up Clive. Well, anyway, that is the idea for this deck. You put ores in it that give them fire breathing abilities that let you draw, that act as removal, and just try to protect and soup up your Vivi and hopefully do commander damage or burn damage to your opponent. Now let's move on to the next one here. Now, for our next one, I call it Steal from the Rich. It's a theft based deck in Boros colors, which is definitely not the colors you normally see them in, which is great because we can use cards in white that help us with the stealing. And I'm just going to say this right here. I looked up how to pronounce this character's name. There was like 3 or 4 ways. I guess it's a French name. I'm going to pronounce it Zidane. If that's right, that's right. If it's not, it's not. That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's 3 generic and Boros colors. It's a legendary creature, human mutant scout. It is an uncommon, by the way. When it enters, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. Whenever an opponent gains control of a permanent you create a treasure token. It's a 3/3. So it has an ETB trigger. It steals something, gives it lifelink and haste, of course. And then when you give it back, you get a treasure. So it's kind of like you're stealing from them and then selling them back their stuff, which fits for his lore because Lord Tidbit, he is laid back. He's a thief. He's casual and outgoing. He's friendly to those around him, but can get very serious when faced with danger. In the game, his abilities are steal and skill. Now, we want some redundancy here. So we have a lot of creatures with ETB effects that steal something. And of course, you can always abuse ETB effects with blinks. So keep that in mind. Toss those in there too. There's also a lot of sorceries and instants that steal temporarily in red. They steal creatures and then give them back and will have a boost or some benefit depending on what set it is. So you can do that as well. I just want more of the creature route. Now you got Coercive Recruiter. It's 4 generic, 1 red, creature, orc, pirate. When it or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. Until the end of turn, it gains haste and becomes a pirate, and it's a 4/3. Then you got Swooping Pteranodon, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's 3 generic and Boros. Creature, dinosaur, flying haste. When it or another dinosaur with flying enters the battlefield and under your control, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gets flying and haste. And then at the beginning of the next end step, target land deals 3 damage to that creature, and it's a 3/3. Now, if I had to make a legendary creature, it'd be this guy. This guy would be such a cool legendary creature, but I digress. So you see what's happening here. They ETB, they gain control, and then some extra boost. It makes them a pirate. It gives them flying. Gives them lifelink. So we steal their things. Now what's next? Of course, we can blink them. There are some blinking abilities that put the creature back under your control. Most blinking abilities, if you notice, say under its owner's control. So, for example, you got Cloud Shift. It's a 1 white instant. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So you steal their Blightsteel Colossus, let's say, and then you want to keep it. You play Cloud Shift, blink in it, and then it comes back, and then you don't have to give it back because now it's considered a new creature. Same thing with Cold Storage. This is an older one from Tempest. It's 4 generic artifact. You can pay 3, put target creature you control on Cold Storage, which the Oracle text says exile target creature you control. And then you can sacrifice Cold Storage, put all creature cards on Cold Storage into play. And then, of course, the Oracle text says under your control. So it's another way to, and this is a repeatable one where you can keep using it, of course. Steal something, use this, and then sacrifice it when the time comes to get them all back. It's cool because you can sacrifice it in response to it being removed. So one thing I was thinking about this deck is using phasing. Now, phasing works weird when you gain control of your opponent's stuff. So let's just read Haystack real quick. It's 1 generic, 1 white artifact. You pay 2 generic, tap it. Target creature you control phases out. Now, let's say you steal someone's Blightsteel Colossus. And then you attack with it. And then before the end of the turn, you phase it out. Although the creature you steal will be phased out, the until end of turn trigger still resolves while it phases out. However, it won't phase back in on it will phase back in on your upkeep, not your opponent's upkeep. Normally when if I phase out my own thing, it comes back at my upkeep. If they phase out their thing, it comes back on their upkeep. It will actually come back on your next upkeep. So, for example, I steal Blightsteel Colossus. I phase it out. Your opponent will take their turn. They don't get Blightsteel back. Then they'll pass their turn, and eventually you'll go back to your upkeep, and then they get the Blightsteel back then. And then you can steal it again if you wanted to, and kind of do that kind of shenanigans. So you can give back the permanent if you want, get a treasure. You can blink it, keeping it, or you can phase it out to delay giving it back to your opponent the turn where they can use it against you. For example, that Blightsteel, you don't want to give it back and then they use it against you, have that delay, and then steal it again. Now, you can also sacrifice the card. Let's say you take that Blightsteel Colossus from them, then you can use Bryon Stout Arm, who's 2 generic, Boris colors, legendary creature, giant warrior with lifelink. You can pay 1 red, tap it, sacrifice another creature. This creature deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player, and it's a 4/4. So you can instead sacrifice that Blightsteel, do 12 damage or 11 damage to your opponent, gains 11 life, all good. There's even lands that will sacrifice. I think there's like 3 lands, 4 lands that will sacrifice creatures in these colors. Like High Market here, you can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap it, sacrifice a creature, gain 1 life. Gaining 1 life, not a big deal. However, getting rid of their threat because you don't want to give it back to them, huge deal, huge deal. What are other shenanigans can we get involved here? You got the Jolly Balloon Man. This guy is creepy. I want to know his backstory. There's not really much on it. He's a 1 generic, Boris colors, legendary creature, human clown, haste, pay 1, tap it, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, except for it's a 1/1 red balloon creature in addition to its other colors and types, and it has flying and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery, and it's a 1/4. So let's say you take that Blightsteel Colossus, you can tap the Jolly Balloon Man, create a copy of it, and then swing in for it'd only be a 1/1 at that point. But if there's an ETB creature that you want to get, there's an ETB. You can get that second ETB trigger, or this can almost be like a sacrificing effect. For example, you steal your opponent's commander, which is legendary, then you copy it with the Jolly Balloon Man. You can choose to sacrifice your opponent's commander and keep the token, because it doesn't say it's a non-legendary, so it'd be exact copy except for those characteristics. Then you got Hofrig Ghost Forge, 3 generic Boris colors, legendary creature, Dwarf Cleric. Spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, exile it, and if you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except for it's a spirit in addition to its other types. And it has, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return that exile card from your graveyard. So you can exile, you can steal stuff from your opponent and exile it, and if you do, you create a token of it. So it lets you keep a token copy of it, but of course, when that token dies, they get their card back in their graveyard where they can reuse it. So those are just a few shenanigans I thought of, because Boros is not the typical theft deck. So it gives you opportunities to kind of abuse the rules, like with the phasing and with the returning back under your control. You can find little holes in the plan and make it kind of your own there. Now let's get on to our last deck here. Now this next one, when I was trying to decide, commanders, I just saw this and had to build it. Okay, it's Taru, and she is actually not a dwarf in the lore. I guess she's a gnome, but it's a dwarf card. It's a 1 generic, 1 white, legendary creature, Dwarven Advisor. When she enters, you draw a card, and target opponent may draw a card. Then it has the ability Scion Secretary. When an opponent draws a card, if it isn't the player's turn, create a tapped treasure token. This triggers only once each turn. It's a 0/3. It just tickles me pink that you're in a 4-player game, right? You got Nicol Bolas fighting the Eldrazi, fighting Phyrexia, and then there's you. You're literally just a secretary that's going around saying, "Hey, Mr. Bolas, you need to draw your card for turn," or "Oh, you missed your appointment, Elish Norn, to the doctor." It just tickles me pink that this is going on. Now, in the lore, not only does this diligent Lalafell, which is the gnome type race in the game, single-handedly carry out the clerical duties of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, she also is responsible for their finances, often dabbling in various trade professions herself in order to save some coins. So it's perfect for the lore of the card and the mechanic of the card. I just like it. Anyway, so we're going to profit from letting our opponents draw, of course. Nothing comes for free. So, not only do you get a treasure token with your commander's ability, you can play cards like Smothering Tithe, which gets you even more treasure tokens. I will say this is technically a game changer card, so keep that in mind if you care. It'll automatically make you bracket 3. It's a 3 generic, 1 white enchantment. When your opponent draws a card, that player pays 2 generic. If that player doesn't, you create a treasure token. And then Smuggler's Share, it's 2 generic, 1 white enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. They create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield this turn. Obviously, you get to draw if your opponent drew 2 or more cards, and there's going to be a lot of ways to make your opponents draw in this deck. You really are going to be everyone's friend, possibly their partner, because you got Wedding Ring here. It's a 2 generic, 2 white artifact. When it ETBs, your target opponent gets a token copy of it. And then, whenever your opponent who controls a Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw the card. And then, whenever they gain life during their turn, you gain life. So it's kind of a cute thing, like you're marrying your opponent. It'd be cool to make a deck where your goal is to get this out and make copies for everyone. So it's like a polygamous, 4-way commander game. That'd be funny. Everyone would be drawing. It'd be madness. Then you got Scrawling Crawler. It's a 3 generic artifact creature, Phyrexian construct. After beginning your upkeep, each player draws a card, and then when an opponent draws a card, they lose a life. So this is actually one of the best cards in the deck because it lets them draw and it punishes them for drawing. And then you got stuff like Temple Bell, which is a 3 generic artifact, taps each player draws a card. So you can make it so they're drawing on your turn instead of like a Howling Mine effect where they draw in their upkeep. Then you got Ephemerate, which is 1 white instant. Exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield, then rebound. You cast it at your beginning of upkeep for free. Like I said earlier, your commander is technically an ETB trigger effect. So what you can do instead of doing all this extra drawing cards like Temple Bell, you can just put a whole bunch of blinking effects in your deck and just keep blinking and blinking and blinking your commander. And its ability would trigger again and again and again. You can go that route if you want. I didn't, but there's no wrong way to do it. Okay, then you got my favorite Ebony Owl here. It's 2 generic artifact. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 7 or more cards in hand, this card deals 4 damage to him or her. Now, hopefully your opponent has 7 or more cards. You're going to be making them draw a bunch. There's going to be cards in the deck that prevent discarding, like prevent discarding the hand size. So hopefully you have that, and they have even more, because that will really help Black Vice. Black Vice is a 1 generic artifact. When Black Vice enters, choose an opponent. At the beginning of the chosen player's upkeep, Black Vice deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of cards in the hand minus 4. Now, a little fun story about Black Vice. when I was young, when I was like a teenager in high school, I joined a standard tournament at a store, and they had like door prizes. At the end of the tournament, I lost, of course. But at the end of the tournament, they let people pick off a table of different prizes. They would like raffle names. My name was the last one they pulled. So, and there was one gift left on the table. It was some book. I can't even remember what it was. And I was kind of disappointed. And then, I flipped through it, and there was a black vice in the pages. Like the owner of the store put it in there kind of to trick people. And, back then it was a relatively expensive card. I think it was like $5 or something. So it wasn't like crazy, but I still have it. I remember it to this day. Now, you're playing cards that draw you stuff, but you're also creating treasures every time your opponent draws. And what are you going to do with all that treasure? Well, you can do X spells, which is one of the routes I went, because you're obviously draining your opponent for life because of the number of cards in their hand and every time they draw. So this is another route you can go. So you got Entreat the Angels and Decree of Justice. Both make X amount of 4/4s, just in a little different way. Entreat of the Angels is 2 X generic, 3 white, sorcery. Create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying, and then you can miracle it. It's X generic, 2 white. Miracle, you can, if it's the first card you drew that turn, you can cast it. And that includes your opponent's turn. Like if you play Temple Bell on your opponent's turn, this is the first card. I believe you can still, because it messes with timing restrictions. Okay, so then you got Decree of Justice. It's XX 2 generic 2 white sorcery. Create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying. Then it has cycling for 2 in a white. And when you do cycle it, you can pay X generic, and if you do, you create X 1/1 white soldiers creature tokens. So if you have a lot of mana, you can make a lot of angels, and if you don't have a lot of mana, you can still make some soldiers and draw a card. Now, there's one card that I really like in this deck is Sword of War and Peace. It punishes your opponent for having a large hand and benefits you for having a large hand. So it's 3 generic artifact equipment. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and white, which are both pretty important. Then as whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of War and the Peace deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. So it's doing everything we want, and it's a 2 equip cost. Then you got Mind's Eye. So your opponent's drawing cards. Mind's Eye lets you draw cards every time your opponent draws cards. It's 5 generic artifact. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, draw a card. So hopefully you'll be drawing cards for days. And another route I went, since you're drawing so much cards, you can do like a protection spell kind of set. You can do like fogs. You can do like phasing out, indestructible giving spells. 2 examples, Everyone Lives. It's a 1 generic, 1 white instant. All creatures gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Players gain hexproof until end of turn. Players can't lose this life this turn, and players can't lose the game or win the game this turn. It kind of reminds me of the secretaries. Like, she's just going around helping people out. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. Everyone Lives is like her saying, nope, everyone's fine. Everyone chill out. Then you got Perch Protection. It's 4 generic, 2 white instant. You can gift an extra turn and create 4 2/2 blue bird creature tokens with flying. If a gift was promised, all permanents you control phase out, and until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything, and then you exile Perch Protection. Now this is like I have Teferi's Protection at home. I kind of like Perch Protection. It is 6 mana. Keeping 6 mana as an instant up is pretty, but you don't even need to keep it up as an instant. You can play it right on your turn because really nothing will change. And then you could give whoever's losing or whoever's really winning an extra turn so they kill the other players. And that's how you can basically run the deck. You draw cards, you punish your opponent for having a lot of cards in hand, you punish them for drawing spells, and you can make tokens. You can have a protection package where you're protecting yourself. You can have a lot of fogs if you like. I'll always advocate for some fog use. But that's essentially the 4 decks that I came up with for this video. Final Fantasy is amazing. If you're buying some Final Fantasy or you're going to make one of these decks, comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. They tell me I have to say that since I'm a YouTuber now. I'm an amateur at this, so I'm going to listen to them. So if you like it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one.